Hello everyone, Burb here. This is the end closer guide for the Gemini Cup. This builds off of the Gemini Cup overview. If you're new here, I would suggest watching that first because that will go over the track itself, stat justifications for the stat thresholds that I'll be showing you today, as well as general deck building suggestions. Today I'm talking specifically about end closers, and we're going over their skills, cards, and characters in particular. Now, there's a lot to talk about end closers, and this particular video has a bonus mathematical analysis in the cards section. It turns out a couple of cards that you have available to you for borrowing need to be compared against each other in order to choose the borrow for your specific situation. So I'll be going over that, and then we'll also talk about Runaways briefly, but there will be a separate video for that as well. So today, let's get right into it. Let's talk about end closers. I believe end closers are the best or the second best role in the game. It's depending on who you talk to. I believe they are slightly better than fronts, although the frontrunner players generally will run more runs, so you will find that frontrunner success rate is still very high because they spend a lot of time on their characters. End closers, I believe, are easier to build than fronts and still are incredibly strong. The strength of end closers comes from the fact that straightaway spurt is a viable option now. It is slightly delayed, which means you do need a secondary acceleration, and you have many options for that depending on the playstyle that you want to go through. We'll go over that. There's also the highest late race speed. So of all the characters in the game, the end closers generally, if they're able to hit max speed on this longer spurt, they're able to go and just use that to carry their late game advantage. They don't need to put as much into late race in order to become successful, so they can focus a lot on the mid race. Speed carryover happens on a lot of backliner skills, particularly one that is on a borrow option. The problem with end closers is that because spurt exists and because a lot of skills are available to you as golds, you're pretty inflexible. There's only a couple of borrows, there's only a couple of skills that you really are looking for, and they're near required for it. Whereas something like a pace chaser or late surger, although not having as much total strength, has a lot of different ways to build the characters. Also, Nishino Flower Ultimate is a lot of this CM, and normally it will be inaccessible for you for perfect proc. However, we will go over the situations where it could work. As an end closer, you have the hardest hitting PDM, and this also leads into the fact that some frontrunner players will be running Runaways, and that does change how the game actually functions a tiny bit. But I'm here to tell you that a Runaway will not make your end closer just lose on its own. Okay, those are the pros and cons for end closers. The stat requirements have not changed compared to everyone else. You want the highest power, guts, and wit stat you can with a max speed. So try to get that. If you're using 222, you're probably getting somewhere in between the guts here. If you're using a pure guts maxing build, you're probably going for the top one. There's a threshold at stamina. There's a threshold on guts. Don't force your stamina. It is the least useful stat that you can get on your character for this CM. Although it is still useful, so I would probably still take the scrolls if you can manage it. Your acceleration, primary acceleration, is straightaway spurt. Now, is straightaway spurt 100% required? No, not this time because it's delayed. However, if you're running end closer, straightaway spurt is generally the reason why you're running it because it gives you a good 0.2 baseline. Now, Taishin gets encroaching shadow, of course. There are cards that give this skill, but you really should focus on your parent giving you this particular skill so that you can go and focus your borrows on mid-race speed skills to get into the proper position. Okay, so straightaway spurt is your baseline. Because it's delayed, you do need a secondary acceleration. To put it in perspective, straightaway spurt's about 1.3 lengths due to its short duration as well as it not being a perfect proc, whereas the pace chasers and the frontrunners have budding blossom that give 3.31 lengths. So you need something to bridge that gap. One way to do it is to get your second inherits. So your parent inherits have a lot of different options for this. You could get louder trace and cheer, which is what a lot of people are saying. The only problem with this is that if you're a backliner focused player and you're running multiple backliners, or if your end closer is very strong and you happen into a late and end closer focused lobby, you're going to find louder trace and cheer. You're going to sniff 6th place because you have to be 7th through 9th for the entirety of the first half of the race, and then you are going to not get the acceleration. This is also not necessarily exactly what end closers are trying to do. They're trying to push up in the mid race and then go into the late race with their high late race coefficient. Pump iron, you are trying to snipe 6th place. Dober alt does not work because the mid-race corner, the final corner is in the mid-race, so it will proc too early. You can late proc into 5th place with redshift, although the trouble with this is that you normally need something else to go and proc your Excel to pass into 5th place. And then finally, Budding Blossom may not be the worst skill in the world to take. Now, it is a lobby gamble. It is something that you would do if you're running a bunch of late surgers. Now, late surgers or end closers. Now, the thing with Budding Blossom is you don't necessarily need this to immediately proc because the Excel zone is very large. This can still, and you can see on the simulator here, this can still proc after your spurt hits and you pass a few people. So if you're passing into 4th, this is sort of a win more option that, hey, you are in 5th or 6th and you've hit your acceleration with a spurt, and now Budding Blossom with spurt will give you 1.91. This is with spurt on a late proc around 1150 to 1200 meters, so it is slightly late proc. Now, it's a high roll strategy, so out of all these, it's probably the lowest priority for your parent inherits. Now, if you don't want to go the parent inherit routes, what I would suggest, well, there's more parents, but we'll talk about that in a second. No Stopping Me, Nimble Navigator, Updrafters, Furious Feet. Your gamble accelerations give near guaranteed lengths. Okay, so Updrafters gives guaranteed lengths, although you don't necessarily want it to be at the 0.2 at the very end, but generally about half the time to 3/4 of the time, it will give you a significant amount of length. You can see Furious Feet is double Updrafters and it gives 6.62. Updrafters gives about 4 lengths. Nimble Navigator, if it decides to proc perfect proc, is incredible. It gives about 3.5 lengths. I only think you need the white skills on these because I believe there are better borrows in the game to do than the gold versions. IG Power works as well, and it has the bonus of not being position bound, being this bees being back half. And then of course, Highlander I didn't mention last time. I thought it wasn't good enough, but even though it does late proc, even with spurt, it still gives 2 lengths if it's perfect procking, so it may be worth taking if it's like 100 skill points. Radiant Star is just, it's like a 1 in 5 gamble for something that costs 400 skill points. You're better off getting just more mid-race skills because like the speed carryover is going to be around 2 lengths anyways for it. All right, secondary inherits, I didn't talk about these. If you're a hyper gambler, Doto alt, I never goof up. If you pass somebody exactly in this 33 to 66 meter range right after the corner still happens, but this is late race, you do get a massive 2.05, which is higher than pretty much everything else except Pump Iron. Condor's Fury and both Gold Cities are a little bit tough in the end closer position because you really want to be in those middle of the pack positions, and usually they will proc early. Gold City Ultimate, Festival Ultimate is also block site continue time, so it's a little tough. Shooting Star is just generally weak. It's only a 0.05, but if it does miss, you do get a little bit of speed, which is perfectly fine. And I don't personally suggest give Mumia a hug because it's happening after your straightaway spurt, and you're really looking for your secondary acceleration to be able to have a chance to high roll by procking it on that corner. So yes, you can technically spurt into pass into 4th, which triggers Mummy a hug because that's banishing, and then you get like maybe 3/4 of a length. You can see how fast it drops off if it doesn't proc immediately. I didn't put her here, but Wedding Mayano Flowery Maneuver may also be an option. It is basically a late proc. It's a late proc pass. So you pass late on the final corner, you are in the back half of the pack, and then it is basically at that point, it is acceleration. So it's also a gambling skill with these inherits. I would suggest these and both of these before taking any of those inherits. Corner acceleration, white probably is the only other gamble acceleration to happen. The reason is a 1 in 4, which is not the worst thing in the world. I would take regular corner acceleration before I take Radiant Star. It's cheaper, and also it has more effect, and it's on a Guts card if you do decide to get Corner Connoisseur. Corner Connoisseur is just uber high roll. Get it if you get like maybe a fast learner run. Let's talk about velocity skills. Early race skills are good on end closers. However, you're going to find there is no guaranteed PDM break. Now, Slipstream playtime's over, and Big Sisterly or Unyielding Spirit will probably happen early because is overtake condition on Unyielding Spirit should proc. You should have a pass target somewhere in the first like half of the race. Playtime's over. Of course, you're going to be close to people at all, and you get these 3 Umastand, Slipstream, and Playtime's over. Notably, these accumulate time 5s and accumulate time 10s are too late to actually go and guarantee a PDM break. What you're seeing on these graphs and what you're seeing in the simulator with these ramps, as I confirmed with people, is that the simulator is actually simulating the default pacekeeper is slightly too slow, and it's simulating a PDM happening at roughly mid sector 2. So you can see the effect of what happens when it is PDM breaking. It is about twice to 2.5 times as effective, but this is not a guaranteed PDM break. So these early race skills are good. However, make sure that you know that most times they are pretty much just as good as the mid-race speed skills. Those mid-race speed skills, the two that you should be looking for is full of vigor, gotta enunciate that, and daring strike. I believe I forget what the white skills on these are. Early start is not worth it, is 0.05. So daring strike and full of vigor are the two that you're gonna be looking for on your Barrows itself. Otherwise, your mid-race speed skills, you want corner skills, specifically final corner skills. So Shadow Break is the big borrow. I would borrow this probably as one of your two parents if you can. But then again, if you need an Excel, go grab an Excel. Narita Bryan's 0.45 becomes a 0.25 in Inherit, and it's really powerful because a lot of times you're going to be passing somebody on the final corner because you're going to be getting these two mid-race speed skills proccing. And you pass anybody on that final corner slightly late, you can see it's basically a 50-50 at this point. You speed carry over for 2 lengths. So this can couple with Spurt and win on its own. Same thing happens with Nemesis and Blazing Pride. The reason why these are here is that most likely you will be building a Taishan at some point, at least if you're building some sort of meta and you have the character. Nemesis is very good on its own, and also even though it's a 0.15, it still has that sort of 50-50 final corner where it's going to speed carry over for you if the overtake condition happens at all late at all. Same thing happens with the free-to-play version, which is Blazing Pride as well, although it does not proc any form later than that. Otherwise, you got changing gear and it's on for your mid-race. Corners and straights, I prefer corners over straights because of 2 particular reasons. We'll talk about the runaway reason later, but basically corners can speed carry over this one, and straightaways can, yes, they can help you with a very, very nice PDM break at the start, but they can also have this massive Excel zone where they get eaten up. So I prefer corners personally. Straight skills, generally, if they are still cheaper than your corner skills, if they're still relatively close or cheaper, you still get single circle straights, single circle, just regular straightaway adept. I don't think you need a Seek Beeline Burst, but Pro Curve is a very good skill. Your late race speed skills, the only thing really to note is do not take Storm and Drung or Masteral Gambit. I personally don't, I think it's a bait, personally, because if you're passing somebody in the back half of the pack on the final straight, which is after you hit your spurt, it's very unlikely you're winning from 6th position all the way cinema. Now, you can if you really want to build for cinema, but Master Gambit has to proc in that zone, but also later that you're going to get some of it, some top speed after it. So let me say that better, in a better form. Masterful Gambit, you have to pass somebody in the back half of the pack, but you have to pass them in the back half of the pack late enough that you are at max speed, which means you've hit your acceleration and somehow you are not passing anybody, and you're in 6th place passing into 5th place with like probably 250 meters left. I don't think you're winning in that situation. That's why I don't suggest Storm and Drung Master Gambit. Otherwise, Firm Course Menace is probably the easiest to acquire as far as a borrow is concerned for late race, because late race speed is good. Homestretch Haste or IBAM exists, as well as Tripulse and Vaudeville for some Inherit options. Let's talk about cards. I'm going to grab a drink of water. I said this would be a mathematical analysis, and that is because you really have 3 options for borrows, in my opinion. For 95% of people, you will either be borrowing CB Wit, you will be borrowing Bamboo Memory Guts, or you'll be borrowing Kittison Black with their respective skills, Daring Strike, Full of Vigor, and Professor of Curvature. Now, you have to compare these 3 skills to figure out which one is like the best one, right? So Daring Strike is a 4-second 0.25, where Full of Vigor is a 1.8 second short duration 0.35, and Pro Curve is a 2.4 second 0.35 as well. So base, nothing else. You get, I'm going to use my distance units thing where I just multiply it and don't care about stretching. Basically, Daring Strike is always really powerful mid-race because it's just 1.0 distance units, so it's 100%, let's say. And Full of Vigor is a final corner skill, but it's only 63% as effective as Daring Strike, and Progressive Curvature is only 84% effective as Daring Strike. This is why Daring Strike is such a good mid-race skill. It's just more efficient than the other options that you have. Now the thing is that these skills have different percentage chances to speed carry over. That is why these final corner skills are very good. Daring Strike is a 140 meter skill. I did this on simulator to save some math time, but it lasts for 140 meters because that's what 4 seconds gets stretched out to in meters. Full of Vigor is only 62 meters, and Professor of Curvature is 85 meters. So your chance of carryover, you divide it by what the proc time availability is for each of these. Daring Strike is any time in the mid race, which happens to be 800 meters long. It's 1,067 minus 267, and 140 divided by that is a 17.5% chance of speed carryover. The same thing with the other two skills. If you take 62 over 275 for 22.5%, and Pro Curve is 85 over 550 because you have corner 3 plus corner 4 itself. Now, here's the problem. I do not understand why the simulator is undervaluing these. I'm missing something, okay? So what I'm doing is I am normalizing. So I use distance units up here, 1.0, 0.63, and 0.84. Now you can look at sort of the ratio that these are happening, but you can also just say, hey, it's 35.35 speed carryover versus 0.25 speed carryover. So in the situations where it's speed carryovering, Full of Vigor and Professor of Curvature are both more effective at that point. So if I take 1.8 and you multiply it by 1.4, you get 2.5. So that is how I am mathematically, in the realm of theory, making it so that these two get a little bit of a boost over Daring Strike. It's a significant boost in the speed carryover section. So we can take the expected value. I'm going to just use, because I'm using distance units, expected distance units. Daring Strike has 82.5% of the time is just a mid-race speed skill, and then 17% of the time it is a speed carryover for 1.8 is what we're going to say, because that is the ratio that I was finding here, and I was basing everything off of that. So it is, you do that math there and you find it's 1.14 expected distance units. So basically you have a little bit additional expected value out of it because of that speed carryover potential. Full of Vigor is the same equation. The only thing you have to add is that this is final corner, and technically there is final corner in the late race, which can get eaten. So 12% of the time it will get eaten by the acceleration zone. 22% of the time it'll speed carry over for the massive 2.5, and then when it's not, it's a 0.63 for 0.975 expected distance units. Do the same for Pro Curve and you find it's 1.04. And so now you can see Daring Strike has the highest expected value over time, and Full of Vigor has the most high roll potential with the speed carryover, right? So initially it says, hey, that means that we need to do it in this order with CB Wit, Kiddison Black, and Bamboo Memory. There's other things to think about. The one that you should really think about the most is cost of replacement. How does your deck look without the card that you're borrowing? So if you're not running CB Wit, what is the Wit card that you're having in the back? Do you have a Fine Motion? Do you have a Nice Nature, right? If you don't own these three, you're going all the way down into Agnes Tachyon and Marvelous Sundayland. Whereas if you don't have Kiddison Black, there's a lot of different options. Some of them are even free to play with Shinko Windy that are just as powerful as Kiddison Black. And the big problem that I think a lot of people are going to find is that, hey, there is 3 Guts slots in the Guts maxing decks and 2 Guts slots in the 2/2/2 Guts maxing deck. The 2/2/2 Guts deck, rather. And there's a lot of Guts cards, but if you're missing any of them, Bamboo Memory's output is just higher than like most of the rest of the cast. I mean, if you have Akuno Dictus Feet as well as Sakura Bakashino, maybe you can omit this card, but if you have just like Ayabe and the 2 free-to-plays, you might see a bigger boost from grabbing Bamboo Memory and putting away one of these 2 cards compared, because this has no initial training and Bijan has no speed or power bonus, as well as like lackluster output but has high friendship bonus. So you have a trade-off and problem with the free-to-play cards that are solved by running Bamboo Memory, because you can just run Bamboo Memory, one of these, so you only have to deal with one problem, and then Ayabe Guts as well. Also, if you don't have Ayabe, well, you're already into the lower tier with 2 and you need to fill out the 3rd slot for the Guts maxing decks. That's cost of replacement. So if you're losing one of these three, and you can see that these are pretty close to each other, they're within 20 to 25% of each other, what's the next thing for stats-wise that you're losing in your deck? The final thing to take note of is, hey, you're playing an end closer. What is even the point of playing an end closer? You have two things above late surger, right? You have daring strike and you have straightaway spurt. If you're not getting daring strike, you only have straightaway spurt. So what you are taking on when you don't have straightaway spurt is that you are basically not running a wit card that has 15% race bonus. You're not running, if you're not running guts build, you're not running a power card that has the mid-race speed skill for late surgers. Bamboo Memory Guts still runs in late surger, and you're just perfectly accepting a higher PDM. Like, you're accepting harsher PDM for pretty much only straightaway spurt. And I will tell you now, this is a little spoiler for the late surger guide, the gamble accelerations like on your left, they're still kind of fine. I mean, they're not as effective as straightaway spurt, but they can high roll, and if you stack enough of them, it's perfectly fine. So I just don't see the point of going end closer right now without the chance of getting daring strike, which is why my priority for borrowing for the guts build that I'm suggesting is getting CB Wit first, because I think that's the point, is that you are daring striking, that is, you're getting in position with that daring strike, and you're playing end closer. You're trying to get that mid race over the late surgers. The late surgers will go from the back of the pack and they will try to Senma you. The end closers are trying to use their speed to get as far forward into the mid pack and then use that to win the late race itself. After that, I think is Bamboo Memory Guts for most people, because I think most people are missing a Guts card, as well as it still gives that high roll potential. And then finally, Kittis in Black for Pro Curve. I think a lot of people already have this card, but if you don't have any of the three, I think you do CB Wit. If you have CB Wit because you're a newer player that pulled on that banner, then you probably do Bamboo Memory Guts and you run like Shinko Windy if you can, or pretty much any other speed card that you're able to. After that, you're in stats mode, so Firm Course Menace is a good skill, so you probably run Narita Top Road, or you run Fuku for the uber high roll, get your stats all to 1200 build. If you have every single card on this list, and this is why I wasn't really going a full card section, you can NSM gamble, or you can swap one of your Guts card for Grass Wonder for Furious Feet gamble, or grab a power card and just for It's On and get more mid-race. I think all your skill points are pretty much allocated with these 3 or 4 cards anyways, so I don't think there's much use in going much further than this in the borrow priority. If you're going speed, power, wit, for those who are unable to do guts build or don't want to go guts build, remember that Ayabe power still is a card and still gives you daring strike, right? So it's still a good card with 10% race bonus. CB wit is 5% race bonus, but it's on a wit card, so if your wit cards are strong, you can still go Ayabe power. Then Kittis in Black, Firm Course Menace with NTR, and then Yaino Mateki for more power at that point, because you really need a lot of mid-race skills to justify not having the guts itself. Otherwise, you can just run Fuku for more stats and hopefully more guts. I don't think you're going to ever be NSM gambling on a speed, power, wit deck, because at that point you probably should be running the guts deck instead. Let's talk about characters. One more break, sorry. That was a lot of talking about math there. I think the strongest characters in the game are going to be the ones for end closes, are going to be ones with semi-reliable acceleration ultimates. The biggest one, I think, is Narita Taishin. I think this has been the sort of consensus. The reason why Taishin is so strong is twofold. The first one is Encroaching Shadow is a 0.4, so everything I talked about needing a secondary acceleration, well, now your secondary acceleration is the other half of Encroaching Shadow. You get the 0.4, and then everything else that you hit is bonus and gets you there faster. So you Encroaching Shadow Nimble Navigator, and you can pretty much win from that from any position itself, right? So you don't have to deal with any of the gambling options. You basically just go and grab ones that are reasonable, and you hope you 0.6 people instead of 0.4 people. Nemesis as well has an incredibly high chance of speed carryover, because if you don't immediately take an overtake target and it happens slightly late, this is overtake condition, it just speed carries over, which is crazy. So 10% speed growth, the 20% guts bonus, the only thing I would say about that in builds I've been trying is that basically you can lock into 2 wit cards and then just run power sparks, because that's the hardest thing to grab. And also you can just go and tap the speed button more, because that 20% guts bonus will get you the guts that you need. King Halo Cheerleader is an end D, but basically what you're doing with this character is that this is your point 4, and then you're adding straightaway spurt on top of it, and you're hoping that it's there. And if your louder trace and cheer is not proccing, it means you're in the first half of the pack, hopefully, and you can go and do things with like late proc Red Maru alt or let's pump some iron, stuff like that. Okay, so you're basically building, an arbitrage situation where you work from 6th or behind, hopefully, and then you work from like the 5th, 6th range as well, or a nimble navigator, something like that. You can also build the cinema with furious feet if you wish. But spring spectacle is a green skill, which puts the need and the necessity for firm course menace a little bit lower, but it's really funny if you get both of them, so it's up to you. After this, it gets a little bit tough in the category, but Tamamo Cross is still going to be incredible because White Lightning is a 0.1 acceleration bonus that should proc into the straightaway spurt that she has in Kit. The only tough thing about this is the mile aptitude, which you will have to have good parents for, which will get her to A, but then also the 20% stamina bonus is a little bit tough, but you probably should hit the 601 threshold because of it. Now, Tail 9 in Kit is basically the mid-race that sets her apart from the rest of the group because no one else is able to grab Tail Held High gold from it besides her. Special Week is the same way. You are looking to late pass people, so you just get hopefully the speed carryover ultimates like Brian on her. You late pass somebody into a speed carryover into straightaway spurt. Again, this is an NC character, I believe. You straightaway spurt into a shooting star for the 0.3. So the speed carryover passes somebody in the late race into shooting star into straightaway spurt. 20% stamina bonus is a little bit tough, but the 10% wit bonus helps as well. IBAM as well will close out your races. I would combo her with Let's Pump Some Iron because she's a front half pass, so you're hoping you're in the 6th position, hit that excel and the speed carryover, pass into it, and hopefully win the game at that point. Final corner ultimates are incredible. They may be better than some of these lower Excel ultimates, but Narita Taishin is by far the most powerful one, I think, out of it, besides Brian. Brian is an ND character, but Shadow Break is what you're getting on other characters. It is a 0.45 speed carryover, which is insane. Hopefully you are passing somebody slightly late. It has a decently long duration, so it does not have to be too late, but Beeline Burst and IBAM will close out the match for her. Now, 20% stamina bonus is tough. Mid-race ultimates are very good. Gold Ship will be your free-to-play option. She is incredibly powerful because she has basically double Daring Strike. Now, Umamusume in Kit also helps. It's an early race speed skill, which is very rare to have, but it will help her, as well as Anchors Away. Anchors Away is just super Daring Strike. You put Daring Strike on her. You do the same thing you do with every single other end closer, and she just randomly wins matches because I guess she has a wit coefficient that's hidden at this point because no one knows what's going on with her. Measure O'Bright, unfortunately, her ultimate isn't very long. It's slightly worse than Gold Ship ult at this distance. End closer corners in Kit doesn't really give that much, but it is a mid-race ultimate that can late proc if you are falling behind a little bit. So you may want to run the Trace and Cheer build for those situations because you could speed carry over late proc at the very last timing. Wit bonus and guts bonus may help a bit, but it's not really helping you that much. The gambling ultimates might be useful for those wishing to high roll or needing a little bit of extra oomph because you are unable to build a fully guaranteed powerful end closer. Pasa Fantasy is an NC character. Condor's Fury is a little tough because it is overtake. It's the same condition as Narita Taishin, except you're getting acceleration, so it's very, very risky because if it procs immediately, you get nothing from it. Whereas Taishin, if you proc immediately, you are normally passing somebody into like a Shadow Break, which really still does the same thing. She has Furious Feet in the kit, which is basically a backup acceleration skill. It's 6th through 9th, and then Home Stretch Haste to give it out. The thing with this character is that she gives a ton of late surger skills that sort of build her kit a little bit better, so you might be better in the late surger position for it. Mayano Top Gun Wedding has Flowery Maneuver for the 0.4. There's not really too much for this. A 5th or worse late pass gives you an acceleration, so you're hoping to pass late. Ogre Cap Christmas is a gambling ultimate skill in my opinion because I think you should be just doing Glittering Star. 777 after school or corner recovery, you pick 2 of those, and then you can either Urara ult if you really want to for the final corner, but it's a little bit tough because it's 6th place and you don't really want to be in 6th or worse as an end closer. And then Glittering Star is just a 1 in 3 gamble of whether or not it procs as late race and it's like decent but not great, or if it procs in the early race, in a position to speed carry over in the final corner. It has like a 1 in 6 to do that, but then your ultimate stretches it to like probably close to a 1 in 4 chance of getting speed carry over plus acceleration. You can technically arbitrage this character and make her consistent by picking Urawa alt and then getting LPSI or Redshift and then Uma squared, and then you're good from 4th through 9th, and if you're 3rd or better as an end closer, you kind of just win. But then again, that's 1100 skill points, and I think you're better off just picking more mid-race and playing her more traditional end closer. Late race speed ultimates are good if they end up proccing late. A lot of these have a little bit tough conditions. Now, Agnes Digital probably is the strongest one of these because OMG the final sprint, what it can do is that if you have an overtake target and you see somebody while you proc this, even if it procs early, it can basically save a wide swing is what I think the consensus is, but also because you are changing lane, it does increase your speed temporarily as well. Super Stand and Kit means that you have a gold early race speed skill, which really helps when fighting against the other end closes for position. OG Oguri Cap is an ND character. Tripulse is the quintessential late race skill. 200 meters is perfectly safe, and speed power bonus really helps in this Guts build. It's incredible, and you can sometimes go down to like single speed, single wit if you have enough wit sparks because of just how powerful this is. Nimble Navigator is just a good secondary acceleration. Corner Connoisseur is your Uwa high roll gamble. You just throw mid race on her. OG Halo is a little tough because it's basically Tripulse from 4 through 6 at 200 meters, which is very tough to come back from. She can still win, but Cheer Halo probably is the better one to run. Admire Vega has speed and power growth. That is her main attraction and the main thing that makes her quite good. Shooting Scar of Descaroy is unfortunately kind of gets eaten a little bit, I believe. Power from lead on the final strength. Yeah, I think it gets eaten up, unfortunately. But again, speed power bonus will be fine. Nimble Navigator is a good secondary acceleration. Don't pick up Storm and Drung. OG Rudolf is an NC character, but this character is incredible, in my opinion. 2 reasons. First of all, the things that are difficult on this character are her stat bonuses and the fact she doesn't have spurt. So it's a very difficult character to build. However, behold thy Emperor's divine might. If you are passing 3 people, you are usually in a position to win the race no matter where it procs. So if it gets eaten and you press it very, very early. Now, what I will say, if you pass 3 people on the corner, it gets eaten because it perfect procs. I think at that point, you are still winning the race because you have passed 3 people. Hopefully, you're proccing ultimates that will speed carry over. And then from there, you're just winning as a typical end closer. If you're not passing people and you hit your Excel and then you pass people, Behold Thine Emperor's Divine Might is an incredible 0.45. The other big thing this character gives you is Professor of Curvature. This means that, hey, you can not run Kidus in black and possibly run Narita Top Road for additional late race speed instead. So you could, just with 2 borrows, get Full of Vigor, Professor of Curvature, I'm blanking, Daring Strike, as well as Firm Course Menace, all on the same character with only 2 borrows itself. I'm thinking 2 borrows itself. 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe 3 borrows. Kawakami Princess. Princess must seize victory. Usually will late proc a little bit because it is block side. Continue time. It's a challenge. The Guts bonus and power bonus, at least there's 10% power bonus. It is an NSM character. You are NSM gambling. She does give late surger skills to help you out in the late surger position. Fine Motion, NC character. Kawakami Princess is an ND character. Fine Motion. Fairy Tale doesn't care where you are in the pack to start because usually this will proc at the late race, probably around the 300 meter mark most races. You might want to build her Pace Chaser because a lot of times it will speed carry over in those positions because you want to be in the 3rd and 4th position. You pass at any point. That gives you enough to hit your Nishino Flower Ultimate. That's kind of the Pace Chaser version of Fine Motion that I think is slightly better than the End Closer. OG Mayano Top Gun is probably better in the front of the pack because Flashy Landing is an Excel, and the front of the pack you can at least gamble that. For this is basically just a target speed because if you're in 1st through 3rd and you're hitting your acceleration, you're already winning the race no matter what you do. Like, let's be honest, you're 3rd place hitting straightaway spurt. As an end closer, I think you're just winning at that point. The last category are ones that are completely tough. Final straight speed ultimates. Hishi Amazon gives you nothing pretty much. End closer straights and corners, I believe. But you and me 1-on-1 is guaranteed to proc on the final straight. And even if it doesn't, like, if you're passing someone, if you're not passing anybody in the back half of the pack at any point in this race, you aren't winning the race. Is the same thing that Stormendrung is having the problem with. She does get 20% power bonus, but you're basically running vanilla end closer. Nice Nature is also a little bit tough because it is a final straight ultimate, but she is at least a no stopping me character. Regular Nice Nature is at least a late race speed ultimate, but then again, she doesn't get no stopping me, so it kind of evens itself out. And also, Nice Nature ultimate is quite difficult to proc as well. ND character. So Titano Diamond is incredibly tough because it is a snapshot final straight ultimate, which means it's guaranteed pretty much. I don't think there's a situation where this ultimate can get any value on this particular track. So it's really tough. It's a left-handed track, so 15% whip bonus is all you get for this character. And just run Autumn Rudolf front or pace. That character is very good in that position. And run Biwa pace for the same reason, because you're going to late proc her ultimate and it's just going to get eaten by the acceleration. You could try late surger on her. I'm not even going to talk about Saiyan Sky. Quickly, Runaway Rabbits. They stretch out the pack is what people have been saying, and a lot of people have been freaking out about it recently because a lot of frontrunners have sort of gone back into the Runaway sacrificial sort of thing now. The two things that it does, there's going to be a new video on this, so I'm going to go through this quickly. That's going to go into more depth. One, it's proccing Nimble Navigator for them, hopefully. That's not really what it's doing on this track, but how you counter them, this is what I guess the applicable part for this, for Runaways, is corner skills and wit, which are two things you should be grabbing anyway. So I would not freak out about Runaways. It's part of the game. It does make your life as an end closer a little bit harder, but if you're building your character properly with enough corner skills and enough wit, you generally will not have the biggest problem against Runaway double front runner, because Daring Strike is just that strong and you have enough mid-race options. So if you're losing to Runaways, you're probably also just losing to frontrunners as well, because they still have all the mid-race and you probably just don't have enough mid-race. So grab your mid-race corner skills, grab your wit. That's how you fight Runaways. You fight them in the same way you fight any other frontrunner, okay? How do you win as an end closer? You push up in the mid-race using your superior mid-race skills to backliners, and then you hit the fact that you are a backliner with an acceleration that is guaranteed in straightaway spurt. You hit a secondary acceleration, that's your 0.4 or your 0.6, and then from there your late race coefficient will carry you the last 300 meters, and you will find you will breeze by everyone at that point. Here's your checklist. All right, I showed you the stats. Grab the stats as high as you can get them. Straightaway spurt is, it's not mandatory, but it's kind of the reason why you're playing end closer. Secondary acceleration, which could be anything from Cheer Halo Alt, Let's Pump Some Iron, Nimble Navigator. Those are good ones. You could get Furious Feeder Updrafters, stuff like that. Get your Daring Strike for your mid-race. Get more mid-race speed skills, more corner skills. I think corner skills are better than straight skills, but get the cheap straight skills as well. Get your late race speed skills if you can. At this point, you may be running out of skill points. Mile S helps greatly with end closers, just having the final top speed. But then again, it's not as important as the Derby, but it's still very, very good, and I think you'll have a couple that hit it. More wit, more power, more guts. I think that's the order of it. So wit will help you against Runaways, right? It'll help you get into the mid-race more. Power is needed for the two big uphills, but this uphill is in the Excel zone, which is why this Excel zone is so long, and also you will not bump against the top speed until the very end. And then guts after that is important for the threshold. We've done the pace and end closer guide. I hope that this has been useful for you. We have the front runners and late surgers to go left. I don't know which one of those I'm building next, but I hope this has been helpful. All that's left is to thank the members. Memberships are available. They support me. They are not required. For those in the board tier, I shout out their names in the overview video, but I've been doing it in the actual role guides as well. So real quickly, thank you especially to Kiku ZIRL, Sorcerer, Immobility, Mr. Merritt, Crest of Gautier, Lucifer, Okaricap Isa Burger, Peter Van San, Oscar Van Bruce, Mishya, and Sage. Thank you all. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Take care, everyone. Burb out.